When Hyundai BMW Motors launched the all-new 7th generation Elantra, everybody collectively lost their minds, myself included. At 159,000 ringgit, it is nearly double in price of the cheapest 5th generation Elantra MD that was launched all the way back in March 2012. I thought that is some super ambitious next level pricing. I mean, this is after all a Korean car, and that is exactly the reason why it's also going to be a challenge for HSDM to move this car. Now, Malaysians are too much of a brand snob to begin with, so it's already difficult to convince or sway those buyers towards this car. But for the very few of you who are interested, this is my unbiased take on the Elantra. And spoiler alert, it is really impressive. On the design side of things, the Elantra is quite a bit of a mixed bag. I'm not very fond of the front face because big grills aren't really my thing. Plus the indentations on the side may seem like the designers are trying too hard to stand out. I do like what they did with the rear though. It looks very sporty and it looks like a piece of complex origami. It's very distinctive. I mean, look at this. This kind of boot design, no one in their right mind would do this supercar style treatment to a mainstream sedan. But then again, the guy who designed this car was no ordinary folk. His name is Luc Donkerwolk, I hope I pronounced that right. And he, fun fact, used to work with Lamborghini. His past works include the Lamborghini Diablo, the Murcielago, and the Gallardo, which went on to become the best-selling Lamborghini of all time. Now, I don't know for a fact if this Elantra will go on to be the best-selling model of all time, or at least the best-selling Elantra of all time, but I do know it is by far the most distinct-looking one of all time. Just check out design elements like the lower front apron, the air curtain, side bodywork, the sharp side mirrors with an unusually thin base, aero fins on the C-pillars, a taut rear end with a continuous LED strip, and the overly stylized diffuser. I mean, you can clearly see where the inspiration came from, right? For me, I think the sensuous sportiness design language here is still a mixed bag. Some people love it, some people don't. I am not quite sold on the exterior looks, but what I really adore is the interior. As far as cabin design goes, the Elantra is easily among the best. The bright off-white or light grey leather upholstery looks properly expensive, and the seats are supportive enough for drivers of varying sizes. I like the seating position overall. Visibility is great, you don't get impeded by any weird window sizes and all that, so it's good. And the fact that the screens are angled towards me makes me feel like the cockpit is purposely designed to envelope the driver, so that's nice. Plus, this grab handle separates you from the front passenger, and I think it's brilliant. Overall, the execution here, I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, let's go through some of the things that I appreciate about the cabin first. Number one, build quality is actually pretty good. I love the interplay of colors here. This is, of course, this particular variant. There's also the all-black variant, but this one hits me right in the heart. I like the interplay of colors. Again, you've got light grey down here, and then you've got darker grey, and then you've got this black hard plastic top here, but you know, it just looks good. Plus the tweeter covers, these actually look like metal, like what you get with the Mercedes, but it's not, it's plastic. But it looks good, you know. And speaking of which, the sound system in this car is actually pretty decent. I think there are like 6 speakers. Hyundai doesn't specify, but it sounds really great. I think it's the best in class and quite a bit better than what you get with the Civic FC. Vocals and instruments are clear, and audio reproduction is generally pretty good. So if you like bassy music, for example, this does a good job at reproducing those very low frequency notes, and when things start to get boomy, you don't hear any rattle. So that's also another sign of really good build quality. I also like the cowl on the dash, and the soft plastics they used here feels pretty nice to the touch. Below here, you've got this semi-slanted panel that's really nice, you know. It's a very warm welcome in the age of very mainstream sedans right here. And this is where you find the push start button. Further below, again, very smooth, very slick even. And I think this feels closer to a continental car than Japanese car, so this is a great plus. But as usual with cars in this segment, you'll start to find harder plastics the further down you go. All the other buttons, switches and dials have a great tactility to them, and the steering wheel is so perfectly contoured with the right mixture of thickness and ergonomics. This 10.25-inch instrument display is fully digital and you have 4 themes to choose from. I think it's nice that they give us a LCD display, but I have one comment regarding it, and that has to do with, you know, when I guess the pedal, right, and you can hear the engine revs, but the information that you get from hearing the engine rev doesn't quite match the digital needle that you see here on the tachometer. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect there. I'm not sure what the issue is, but this can be improved. In the middle here, you get a freestanding 8-inch display. It's nothing to write home about. It gets the job done, and I think it could look better without all the buttons. Maybe just keep the dials, but whatever. Controls are fairly straightforward again. It's quite snappy, as you can see, and look at that. You've got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, although this requires a physical wired connection via this USB port down here. And if you plug in your phone, it can also create like a Wi-Fi hotspot for other people to use. So I think that's pretty neat. For Bluetooth, like a lot of Korean cars, there's no latency issues, so that's nice. And included as standard is a Qi wireless charging pad down here. But unlike the Sonata, this one is not cooled. But the cooling function that you get is one that you can feel with your bum. That's right, both front seats, they come with this heating and ventilation function. So that's nice, you know, it's a little bit like a Lexus, and I pretty much leave it on full intensity all the time because it's so hot these days. It's just the heated steering wheel function might not be useful, but then again, all these are available because it's fully imported from South Korea. Not complaining, nice to have. Other things you get are this 8-way adjustable power seats for the driver's seat. No memory function, unfortunately, and the front passenger seat is fully manual. I think that's okay. Would be nice to have at least 4-way adjustable, but it's okay. Other things I want to point out is the fact that they used bulbs for the interior lighting. They had a good thing going, like they could just put LEDs in the whole car for interior lighting, but they didn't. I just don't understand. But anyway, let's go check out the back seats. Okay, at the back here, like I said in my previous walk-around video, it's pretty spacious, but it's not best in class. That award still goes to the Honda Civic. It's just simply unbeatable in the segment. I think you can fit 3 regular-sized adults back here. You just have to keep in mind the hump and the sloping roof. So headroom is okay. I'm about 172 cm. You know, I don't have much space above my head, but legroom is great. So they have got a good thing going. Air vent is good. As in the wind that comes out of it is strong enough, but you don't have any on the B pillars, and there are no USB charging ports for the rear. Sometimes I feel like Hyundai knows what it's doing, but then they pull a fast one like this and I just don't know what to make of it. That's odd. Anyway, other things include cubbies here, no blinds for the rear windows or the back windscreen, and boot space, since we're here, is about 474 liters, which is okay, not the best in class, but wide enough, and you don't have a spare tire underneath. But under the boot floor, you'll find a fix a flat kit, so it's not like the full-size spare tire that you used to get, because I think Hyundai and Kia for the longest time have been doing that. They gave full-size spare, but I guess not anymore. The engine that powers this car is a 1.6-litre naturally aspirated smart-stream engine. No turbocharged, no whatever. It makes 123 horsepower and 154 Newton meters of torque. And on paper, that sounds pretty lame, you know, almost like a joke. But out in the real world, it is actually, honestly, very good. It reminds me of the Mazda 3 and the Mazda 2's 1.5-litre Skyactiv G engine. It is quite good. I feel like it's all because of how well the Hyundai IVT gearbox works with the engine here. IVT stands for Intelligent Variable Transmission, and it basically means CVT lah, yeah? But how it differs is that it has 8 virtual speeds, and the 8 virtual speeds do a very good job at mimicking the behaviors or the characteristics of a conventional 6 or 8-speed torque converter gearbox. It really is mind-blowing how well built and designed and mapped this gearbox is. And the best part about it is it's all built in-house. It's one thing to make your own engines and have someone else design or produce the gearbox for you. A lot of car companies do that to save a little bit on cost, but not Hyundai. They do all of this in-house, including suspension tuning, chassis development and whatnot. What this does is basically Hyundai's vertically integrated supply chain allows them a lot of control and gives them a lot of say in how components in a car talk to one another. It's actually brilliant, come to think of it, but it's also very costly. The level of cohesion and harmony that I'm getting from this drivetrain and powertrain combination is impressive. I feel like the IVT does a very good job at wringing all the power out from the engine, and to that effect, the engine hardly ever feels underpowered. You know, in fact, it gets up to speed rather well, and it really only starts to feel gutless once you're past 140 kilometers and you're going full pelt trying to overtake. Other than that, it's perfectly usable. I am really happy with the 1.6 litre engine, but again, for nearly 160,000 ringgit, I would prefer it to at least be turbocharged, you know, the N line. But as it is, this powertrain and drivetrain package, it really is not bad. There's nothing to be ashamed about, really. There are no pedal shifters to be found here, but at least there is this Tiptronic function on the gear lever that lets you control your gear shifts and whatnot. There are also 4 drive modes, Eco, Sport, Normal and Smart. And if you have a twitchy right foot, you can just use Eco. That's going to help you regulate your throttle input. In Sport mode, you'll find that the transmission shift pattern is a little bit more aggressive, and if you leave it in gear, so to speak, it will hold on to that gear until you are ready to upshift or downshift. So it's all just a very basic TC remap. There's no adaptive dampers, no other sorcery happening, just a straight shooter, just like that. And like a lot of CVTs, it gets quite loud at the top end. But you know, it's not as loud as Toyota's CVT. The ride is surprisingly good. The car feels more matured now than it has ever been before. And even though the rear gets a torsion beam setup, the secondary ride is not as bouncy as what you typically experience in other cars with a torsion beam setup. So overall, it feels very stable when you're cruising down the highway, and just, yeah, overall a lot more matured. If I can simplify it, the ride quality has a little bit of the European car feel, which is a nice thing, and I find it to be increasingly more common with the newer crop of Hyundai cars. It's not a particularly sporty car to drive, at least it doesn't make you feel like you want to drive hard and fast all the time, because as a point A to point B kind of car, this is a very easy car to drive. It gets the job done very comfortably. You sit in it, you're just all cozy and feel like you're in a nice space, you know? And it's because of all this that makes you feel like, maybe I don't want to trash the car. It's not to say that the car is not capable. Yes, it is. It does roll and pitch a little bit when driven hard. It's not as, I would say, dynamic as the Honda Civic. But the ride quality, even though it's slightly on the firm side, it just makes you feel like you want to take it easy on all your drives. And I think that is a hard quality to come by in a car in this class, period. Refinement is very good too. You barely hear the engine even when it's idling. When you're up to speed, all you hear is tire roar. Wind noise, pretty well kept out, I think. In terms of refinement, yeah, overall pretty good. Just tire roar. But besides that, thumbs up. Okay, for safety, the Hyundai Elantra comes with Hyundai Smart Sense as standard. I've been driving it for a couple of days and I leave most of the systems on. I realized that the camera does a pretty good job at picking up the road markings. You know, it just reads the lines well, and it knows when to intervene, and everything works properly, fluidly, and I would say that it feels very modern. There's stuff like AEB, lane keep assist, driver attention warning, as well as adaptive cruise control with stop and go function. So it has nearly all the features that you want to enable like semi-autonomous driving, although I wouldn't rely on the car to do that because nobody should. But having these features on board that work well most of the time. Actually, it hasn't failed on me over the course of the past 4 days that I've been driving it. So I think it's a pretty good one. SmartSense is modern and it's nice to finally have it. Now, let's wrap things up. I'm gonna be honest, when I was told to review the Elantra, I wasn't particularly interested at first. I dragged my feet and thought nobody would buy a Korean C-segment non-turbocharged sedan that costs 159,000 ringgit. And pricing is exactly this car's problem, which I feel is sad because it's such a great car and many people should at least give themselves the chance to go and test drive. That's the least you can do, just test drive it. If you're not gonna buy it, that's fine. I wouldn't either at 159,000 ringgit. Maybe if it's discounted, I would. But you know, at the end of the day, I think this badge snobbery thing has to come to an end because it's particularly because of this thinking that Hyundai cars, or at least the modern Hyundai cars, are not being given a chance to prove their worth. Hyundai has worked very hard to get to where they are today, and I think the best way to experience all that hard work is to be behind the wheel, to literally give it a test drive. All this to say, pricing is unfortunately not in favor of Hyundai BMW motors. If this 159,000 ringgit price is for the turbocharged 1.6 litre N-line, then yeah, I think that will be a very competitive price for that particular variant. But at the end of the day, this particular Elantra will undeniably move in small numbers. So I guess that's been it. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the car in the comment section below. Until next time, thank you for watching.